see the path to the championship. I can see it.
Coca-Cola 600 belongs to Ryan Blaney.
Blaney's learned how to win over the last couple of months.
Blaney! Harmon! They spin behind him! It's going to be Blaney!
We're going to win this thing.
Ryan Blaney is going to win his way into the championship for...
You have to run a perfect race to get it.
Ryan Blaney is a NASCAR Cup Series champion!
What an unbelievable year. What an unbelievable playoffs for us.
This is the Team Blaney Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 147 of the Team Blaney Podcast. My name is Adam Rogers, and alongside me is co-host Steve Mez. This podcast is brought to you by fans for fans. Steve and I have been following the drivers of the Blaney racing family for 2 decades, and Team Blaney itself launched on social media in 2014. Each weekly episode of the show offers an in-depth analysis of Ryan Blaney's latest NASCAR Cup Series race, plus news, notes, and special guest interviews all throughout the year. And this week, we break down Team 12's run in the Iowa Corn 350 at Iowa Speedway.
White flag. It's 1 lap to go. Presented by Credit Life Bank. The 30-year-old from High Point, North Carolina, has been winless in 2024. He's shown speed. He's shown dominance at other racetracks. And now he's showing that he can get to victory lane at Iowa Speedway. He's the first Cup winner. Ryan Blaney wins in Iowa.
Awesome, man. Awesome job, guys. Way to stick with it all night, man. Great bounce back from Gateway. Super proud of everybody, man. Congratulations. Here's to many more, fellas. Thank you.
That's right, folks. Ryan Blaney went to victory lane finally for the first time in the 2024 season, as he punches his ticket to the playoffs and an opportunity to go out there and defend his 2023 NASCAR Cup Series championship. And welcome to one of my favorite episodes of the year. Hopefully we do this multiple times in 2024. We are recapping a victory for the number 12 team in the NASCAR Cup Series. So Steve, welcome back to another episode of the Team Blaney Podcast, another victory recap episode of the Team Blaney Podcast.
That's right. It's not heaven. It's Iowa.
And yeah, dreams come true.
Mm-hmm. That's right. So, and Father's Day too, no less. All kind of great stuff going on. The TV did a great job of coverage of the family. Because Mrs. Blaney is from Des Moines, actually, or somewhere outside of Des Moines, they said. And every time that he's ever raced there, there's been a bunch of people there from his mom's side of the family, and they really showed up and all dressed together in the stands. So they made a nice little thing of that, and because you don't really think of it as a home track, but it actually is one of the home tracks for him. And then you go back to history and you realize he's won truck races there, Xfinity race there, and now he becomes the first guy to win race in all series there, and he did it the first year, just to make sure we get it out of the way. So great performance all weekend. Practice was, halfway decent. Qualifying was really good. And then execution on Sunday was exactly what everybody needed to do. And that's all you can ask for. So, all except for that last 80 some laps from that last pit stop on, and just the anxiety that I'm sure caused a lot of people to watch, because you just don't know what's going to happen. And, we're watching in-car cameras out the front window of the in-car camera. So, we can't see anything going on behind him. And the TV coverage is a little bit here and there, because they want to show other battles and things like that. But overall, a great way to end the weekend.
Favorite part about the whole them towards the closing laps of that race, showing the 80-plus family members in the stands, was when Rick Allen called them Team Blaney. I thought that was kind of cool. So thanks to Rick Allen. That was definitely a host of Team Blaney fans out there cheering on Ryan in the closing laps of that race. We bring up all these Field of Dream references and movie references, and I was telling you, this whole thing kind of felt like it was made for a movie. He has all 80 plus family members there. They do in the pre-race do a little package on everybody that's there and how this is one of his home tracks. And he's interviewed during the week about how he thought how amazing the fans were in Iowa and how they showed up to the race and it was sold out. He wins, he wins a stage. He leads the most laps he's ever led in a Cup Series race before. Dominates down the stretch. They're showing clips of the fans in the stands cheering for him back to the track. Is something going to happen? Are the tires going to hold up? Reminding people that he ran out of gas, with a mile and a half left at Gateway. All this, pent up, frustration for this team that's trying to defend a championship and they haven't gone to victory lane yet this year. He wins. He does the little Polish victory lap, and everyone thinks that's going to be it. And he has a little extra surprise at the end for fans that love a little bit more emphatic celebrations. So it felt very movie-like. I just felt, I was telling you, I'm on my calculator in the closing laps, multiplying how much time it's going to take, how much time am I going to feel all this anxiety? And it calculated out by the lap times at about 20 more minutes. I was like, okay, I can get through this. It's only 20 more minutes. The laps are clicking off fast. I know there's probably tons of fans that were pacing around their living rooms watching the end of this race, especially with what happened a couple of weeks ago. And it was great. The monkey is off the back. The weight is off, has probably been lifted off their shoulders. I know for crew chief Jonathan Hassler, who, got the brunt of the complaints over what happened at Gateway, makes an amazing call in this race once again to put Ryan in position to win and puts it in the driver's hands. And there are parts of this race where the driver had to take control. And I, mentioned in our Discord chat that, he gets quiet and he gets on kill mode and he just starts picking off cars the whole way through. And what an exciting race. And the fans seem to love it, 90+% on the old Jeff Gluck poll this morning, which was, crazy to see. I don't think they ever expected it to be that high either.
Yeah, that was the funniest thing is don't get me wrong. I vote yes because, the guy I follow won. That's part of it. But if you look at the race as a whole, he led over 200 of the 350 laps. So that's a pretty good percentage of the race by, one guy. And then, Larson led a bunch of the laps. So it was like a race was only dominated by 2 or 3 guys. So if you're really watching it from the way outside, it, didn't necessarily look like it was competitive, but actually it was. And there was actually a lot of passing throughout the field. So guys who were within 0.2 of a mile of an hour of each other actually could get underneath each other and make that pass. And the way that the track was repaved or fixed actually worked perfectly for what they needed it to do. And it caused good racing.
Yeah, that's one thing. I think we talked about it in our preview last week. Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick, both were pretty critical of what NASCAR had done with this kind of partial repave. I haven't heard from Harvick, but Hamlin's definitely turned around and said, what, it was fantastic. And he actually thinks, much like North Wilkesboro, that if they finish the repave, the racing might actually even get better because the line will just keep moving up the track as it rubbers in. So what we did see was almost 2.5 to 3 grooves of racing, depending on how tight guys were racing each other, and opportunities to pass. I mean, you see a point when, Ryan gets back a little bit and has to pass multiple people. The 5 goes all the way to the rear and is passing people all the way up through the field. There's somebody noted the fact that they weren't shifting. And I haven't really heard anybody talk about that. I just heard it kind of as a one-off. And I'm like, we've been talking about how to fix short tracks. And I've assumed or thought that shifting is a big part of that. So whatever magical gear setup and everything, just the way the 7th, 8th mile track worked out, they didn't have to shift and they were able to pass. There's multiple grooves. There was exciting restarts, sometimes excruciating restarts or anxiety-filled restarts where you're seeing guys get used up and crash and some other things. So all around, good visit to Iowa. I hope they keep it on the schedule. I think they tentatively had about a 3-year deal or something, but this is one of those tracks that's owned by NASCAR and they can move dates wherever they want. If they want to go somewhere else, international, you never know. So, but I'm hoping Iowa, I know it was sold out, and that's amazing. But it's one of those tracks where it doesn't take that much to sell it out, but still cool to see. I think they should just do that everywhere if they need to keep producing stands, because it creates kind of an electric atmosphere. I know I felt like that in Nashville last year, because it's another one of those that can really only fit like 40,000 people, but everyone's tucked in there. The energy's high. The racing's great. Kind of cool that this was a night race. I thought I didn't even expect it. I didn't even really realize it until we sat down and did the preview last week that this would be a night race. But I'm just full of energy. I feel like I can just keep talking about it because it's a victory. Like I said, I love these episodes. But let's chat a little bit about how they got there. And that's going to start off with an interesting intro into the weekend. With the way practice worked, and then the way qualifying ends up working on Saturday was a little bit weird. So we can go through some of that.
Crazy. Yeah. Friday was one practice, 50 minutes, which the more and more they do that, the more and more I'm sort of liking it, because the two practices and the practice times and the, this group versus that group. And you can do all that for qualifying if you do a regular qualifying too, as we'll get into. But for practice sake and just seeing lap times and seeing it, one 50-minute practice seems to work way better. And giving them an extra set of tires or two for that, so that they can get a full tire run and maybe some fuel run. And, also kind of, get a chance to maybe do a mock qualifying run too,
Thank God they had this practice, though.
Yeah.
From what happens here.
They learned a lot, and then they were, I think what they learned is they push things too hard. It's not the tire sometimes, it's the teams. So Ryan goes out and runs like about 16 laps and gets a single lap that gets him up to like P3 at one point, and it's only like 0.016 back of the 45. So, extremely good lap times. As the laps were run, he got faster and faster, actually. Some guys 10 minutes in came back in, they came in to adjust. Bell come out and went to P1. Then the 54 blows a right front. He ran 24 laps straight. So that's the thing that was kind of like, a fuel run is 100 laps, So pitting before the fuel run is not a bad thing, but not having to pit after 25 or 30 laps, that would be a disaster. So 13 minutes to go there, Ryan comes back out, or 13 minutes in, Ryan comes back out there. They ran some more laps. I got the 20 blowing a right front tire. So, and there was I think one more in that session that blew a tire. And, Ryan says in post victory race celebration stuff that he wasn't too happy with practice, but the truth is they were extremely competitive. The average lap times looked really good as like an overall average. Going back out and doing a qualifying lap at the end, some of the guys did it, some didn't. I think Ryan was more worried about doing a pit road entry. They did one or two of those to try and make sure they had that nailed down. And then we get to Saturday for qualifying, and that was the interesting thing, is the weather came in. So now NASCAR decides we're going to just do one qualifying session. In other words, they're not going to have a top 10 go for the pole. But as they do this, they still do it as A and B. And the top 5 in A will get lined up by their time. And that's the one thing I think they screwed up. And that is this: if you're going to do it this way, A and B, then just stick with all the guys in A. The first group are going to be the outside lane, no matter what, and all the guys in Group B are going to be the inside lane, no matter what. Because what ends up happening here for the top 5 guys in the first group, is they're going to be 6 through 10, no matter what. They're going to be in that top 10, but they're going to be 6 through 10 because there's going to be guys who run 10th quickest, and second group are going to be faster than them. And this is what ends up happening. Now, they line up the rest of the field that way, so why not just line up? If you were in Group A, you just had no shot at the pole. You had a shot at the front row, being the P2. That's the way they should have done it. Or combine the two groups back into their normal thing. Don't split them. put them in the matrix, worst to first, so that those guys who were extremely fast in Group A would have ran at their normal time with the other guys in Group B and then had an actual shot at the pole. Anyway, that works out. Best thing about it is Ryan was in Group B. And he went out with like 3 or 4 guys to go. And they were running 2 laps too. That was the other thing. They got to run 2 laps. And on the first lap, he nailed it, went to P1. And then he even says in an interview right afterward that he might have left a little bit on the table in that second lap, didn't run it quite as well as he needed to. But it comes down to the last guy watching Larson, and Larson puts it on the pole. It's a great little thing of Ryan turning his head and, saying a word that ends up being, another one counted to the book or whatever. I don't know how that goes, but one more added there for the year. But pretty good, though. P2 is a great way to start. And, get to Sunday. I mean, that's all you could ask for.
And I thought it was important, too, because this is another short track race. And going into it, we don't know what it's going to be like. Like Richmond was okay, and this is probably the closest thing to looking at short track wise is a Richmond, at least the way the length of the track is. So it's going to be hard to pass. Track position is going to be super important. So qualifying anywhere in the top 5 would be great. The pole would have been amazing, but front row was also pretty perfect. And I was happy with the average speeds or average lap times in practice. Puts it on the front row. All right, another opportunity to have a really good race here. Solid race last week at Sonoma. Had an amazing race going at Gateway. We know what happened there. So opportunity to put together some really good string of races here, because we talked about it last week. That cut line to the playoffs, and while it grew a little bit last week in a positive way, I was still nervous because this team still hadn't had a win yet, and those positions in the playoffs were getting harder and harder to come by. And if you have a Truex or if you have a Buescher or somebody else new wins like Cindric did, it gets harder and harder to get in. And I wanted the 12 to have an opportunity to defend the championship. So anything they could do, keep gaining more points, win some stages, and they put themselves in the front right away here with that opportunity.
Yeah, so, now don't worry about any of that stuff, okay? We won't bust out the whiteboard playoff board until the actual playoffs now. There'll be no.
I'll tell you why I'm still worried, but we'll wait until we do the points review at the end of this, but in a different direction.
Okay. So Sunday's race day, stages of 70, 210, and 350, 10 sets of tires, fuel run of somewhere between 100 to 110, pit stall 11. This is another great thing about qualifying up front. Second guy to pick a pit stall. And it's actually with an opening in front of him and the 51 behind him. So always great when you get an opening in front of you or behind you so that you could point your car a certain way and so forth. We had the 2 and the 20 to the rear for backup cars. 10 sets of tires, like I said. And Larson takes the outside for the initial start here. Lap 2, moves the 5 out of the way, gets to P1. These restarts, and there's a mention or two on it, that the 5 is kind of a wild man. He kind of tries to pin you and put you in a bad position so he can take the lead. Now, Ryan got a little bit fed up with it, and the 5 got loose in front of him is what really happened. But then Ryan made sure he stayed loose and got out of the way. Then lap 4, we get a caution for the 7 just spinning out. He was just showing off his Iowa Hawkeyes paint scheme, made sure it made it on national TV. Good job by him. Ryan says we fired off pretty loose here. Jonathan says it's pretty common right now. Everybody's having that same issue. Ryan says, I don't know why the 5 thought he was clear. And for the choose here, Ryan takes the bottom, restart lap 9, 5 and the 14 clear from the outside. So Ryan's in P3. At lap 15, he passes the 14, gets to P2. At lap 20, running the same lap times as the 5 in about 1.9 back. And Ryan says we're free at both ends, tight in the center of 1 and 2. And Jonathan gives Ryan how the 5 is breaking into the corner. So just kind of giving him an idea of what it might take to get to him or run a different lap to get a better lap time. At lap 30, excuse me, the 5 is getting into lap traffic now. So this is kind of, the 5 had checked out a little bit, but now he's getting to lap traffic. Ryan's about 3.39 back at lap 40, about 3 seconds back now, still in P2. And the P3 is the 14 car and 7 seconds behind them. So it's a pretty good gap there. Just do what you got to do. Keep doing your lap times. Lap 50, he's now 1.5 back at the 5. And when then 2 laps later, we get a caution for the 16. And Ryan says it's definitely looser, about a half number tight center and 1 or 2. Pretty good overall. Jonathan says we're going to do number 1 here. And they do. They come in P2, go out P2. It's a 9.94. The 99 and the 6 stay out. Trying to do a little something different than everybody else. Jonathan says the tires look pretty good. They're just worn out. Nothing corded, at least. This, I think this is when they were talking about the fire suit, because it come on TV too, where they're talking about it. And because I have he asked for ice packs that he might need it, and they go over the radio. This is the part that you didn't get. TV tells you about it, but then they'll tell you that they fixed it. There's a recycling of some switches that he has to do a certain way. You only really could do it under caution. You concentrate on it, but you got to wait about 30 seconds, I guess, for it to recycle itself. So you shut it off and wait, and they do get that fixed.
Yeah, the cool suits are really important. I mean, they're showing the temperature gauges in some of these cars at the start of the race, and they're upwards of 113 degrees inside the car. So he wants to be as comfortable as possible. So that's why he's basically saying, hey, if I don't get this thing working, get some ice packs ready for me after the first or second stage. So luckily gets that squared away. Now the 16 does have a tire issue, much like happened in practice. So I think that kind of puts a lot of people on edge. But I think the crew chiefs that know that they made the right adjustments, and from what I understand, that I don't know if they could do it because of the extra practice and the time overnight or not, but sometimes when they get to the track in the next gen car, they can't adjust camber anymore. It's pretty much set. So it's all on air pressures from there. So it's all about how aggressive you're going to be. Again, we saw these issues 2 years ago when the car first debuted early on in that season, and they learned really fast. But here we are at a brand new track they'd never been to before, and maybe their simulation didn't show that this was a possibility. But it didn't make me feel any better when right out of the gate, first stage, that we do have our first tire go down, and there'll be more throughout the field, but luckily not as much carnage as we saw maybe in the Xfinity Series race or even in Cup practice.
So, excuse me, for this choose, the 99's leader taking the top. The 5 actually takes top 2. Ryan takes top behind him. Restart at lap 59 here, and the 5 and Ryan carve their way basically through the 6 and the 99. It's great on in-car camera. Gets himself all the way up to P2 here. By lap 61, he passes the 5, gets to P1. And at lap 65, he's about 3/10 ahead of him and wins stage 1. So right off the bat, actually was faster than the 5. People are going to talk about the 5, what happens to him later in the race and how that may have been the winning car, but I don't think it was. Ryan showed right there that actually the 12 was probably the faster car of the 2 of them. And it would have been great to battle later on in the race, but he didn't have to worry about it.
That's what I was going to say. In the post race, that's all I really saw. That happens in any race. There's guys that go out and you have to take advantage of that. But the 5 and the 12 were battling for much of this first stage. And to win it, Ryan goes up, passes him heads up, and wins the stage. But I guess it just happened so early that people don't remember. The 5 has a dramatic run through the field a little bit later on, and maybe they're thinking about that. And it's just unfortunate that the driver of the team don't necessarily get all the flowers, I guess, that they deserve for this run. But I know a lot of us are still pretty proud of them.
So Jonathan asks or tells him that he left it the same as the first run, that the track was transitioning a little bit, and asks, is it any better? And Ryan says it was a bit better than the first run. So Jonathan says, I think red is going to be the call here. Ryan says the cool suit's working at this point, and Jonathan says stay out. So we choose, and for the choose here, we take the top now with the 5 underneath. 24 is behind us. Restart lap 77. Larson gets by, so now we're P2 again. At lap 81, we get a caution for the 10 car with the help from the 42. The 5, like I said, is playing games on the restarts here. And that's part of why Ryan, it's not that Ryan wasn't faster or not faster or whatever. It was just the way the 5 did some things and, aggressive, but maybe not. You shouldn't be that aggressive sometimes at the start of these races. But of course, Johnson says staying out here. The 5 ends up going in and pitting. And this is that whole thing about the left rear tire problem that he may have been having. And really kind of weird because even today, just listening to different things about it, it's like they thought they had a tire going down, but he didn't want to come in. But the lettering was worn off the tire. And I don't know how you do that by scrubbing the tires. Yeah. So there was just a lot of miscommunication, I think, there. And,
there was a point when they thought it had to do with the 12 and the 5 having contact, but I don't really remember that happening. But they saw that thought it was maybe a possibility. But hey, they guess they just didn't want to take any risks at that point, though.
Yeah.
So
now for the choose, Ryan takes the top. The 24 is on the inside. The 22 is now behind Ryan here. Restart lap 87 here. The 22 clears the 24. So we got a Penske 1-2 going on. That's kind of cool to watch. At lap 90, we're about 2.23 ahead of that 22 car. Lap 95, he talks about the right front chattering, but it's all the way through the steering column. So it might not just be like a tire issue. It might be something with like the steering rack and the axle and kind of something that just doesn't go away though, unfortunately. Lap 100 here, the 22 is closing a little bit, but not able to pass him. And Ryan does say this vibrates like the whole steering wheel. So, but Jonathan says that everyone's fighting tight. So this might be part of the problem too. Lap 110 here, we're now almost 7/10 up on the 22. By lap 120, it's a 1.5 second lead over the 22. At lap 125, we're getting into some lap traffic now. So, get bogged down a little bit. But we're 1.6 seconds to the 24 now. The 24 finally passed the 22. And I got a note in here. This is around when the in-car cameras disappear, causing my frustration level.
I didn't know what to do. I was like, oh no, now I have to watch the TV. What am I supposed to do now?
What's great is my wife is sitting there with Twitter, and she gets stuff on Twitter that happens before you see it on TV, just based on the TV bouncing off satellites and taking an extra 30 seconds to get to us or whatever it is. And she said that Zane Smith's crew said they lost timing and scoring on pit road. So something happened that was not just, one guy's thing, or, it was across the board, because I couldn't pull up any other in-car cameras either. I tried other ones, but at lap 135, the cars do start to pit here. At lap 150, the 9 now is in P2, about 1.5 seconds back. And Ryan has passed all the way up to P26 here. He's lapped that many cars in the field. He says he's loose in, tight in the center, loose on exit. And he also wants to know where the 9 is running behind him. At lap 160, he basically says, I got no grip. The front end's chattering right through the steering wheel, and the in-car cameras come back too at this point, which is cool. At lap 165, the 9 is still chasing. And then at lap 172, we're pitting. And this is a 9.34 pit stop. Really good. At lap 176, though, because of the way the pit cycle worked, the 9 had worked himself in front of Ryan here. And then they pass him back. And this is like for 13th, 14th at this point, with some of the cars that haven't pitted yet. At lap 182, we get a caution for the 31. And, this is that NASCAR.com has put a little thing together where Ryan says he's got nothing for the Hendrick cars. That's where this quote comes from at this point of the race. And then, what happens at the end of the race, a whole different story here. But first through 7 needed to pit at this point. And so they should cycle up to about P5. The 24, the 9, the 5, will be like in front of him at this point. The 47 stays out to lead. So it does end up being the 47, the 24, the 9, the 5, and the 12.
This was a huge moment in the race. And Give props to, I think it's Mike Kelly, the crew chief of the 47. Phenomenal call for their team. Worth noting that Ricky Stenhouse Jr., I think, won 2 or 3 Xfinity Series races at Iowa before. A lot of experience there, a lot of success there. Gives his team track position, also traps everybody that pitted. Now, the 12 car luckily did get back onto the lead lap there. Ryan was a little bit worried, asking Jonathan whether they were or not, but traps a bunch of guys a lap down with not that many laps left in this stage. So they knew they were going to have to pit anyway, but at least they could get some stage points and have some track position and trap as many people a lap down as they possibly can. And this is a move of the race for that team. And so kudos to them for doing that. But yeah, you mentioned the Ryan saying he doesn't have anything for the Hendrick cars. It's definitely makes you chuckle with the way things turn out. But that's not the first time he said that for sure, and it probably won't be the last. But he got the better of him this time.
Yeah. So for the choose here, the 47 takes the top. Ryan on the bottom here, restarting at lap 189. It's a wild 3 wide melee at one point. 5 ends up taking the lead. Ryan ends up in about 5th. So at lap 191, we've got the 5, the 4, the 23 had popped up into this restart, the 9, then the 12. And now here we go. Lap 194, passing the 23 up to 4th. And Ryan tells me the track's definitely getting tighter. Lap 200, 0.3 back of the second and third place cars, the 4 and the 9 battling. And only 2 seconds back of the leader, the 5. But the 5 wins the stage, and Ryan P4 for stage 2. So pretty good P1 and P4, really good stage points to start the race.
Yeah, and this is really important because, as I mentioned, they're battling this playoff cut line. They've already picked up a playoff point, which is huge. Picked up the 10 stage points in that first stage, and they pick up, another 6 or 7 here for this stage. So no matter what happens going forward, and I was hoping for the best, but at least we knew they could lean on these stage points, and it's just great to see them running up front and strategies working out and the car having speed.
So, Ryan says the track's getting tighter. Jonathan says, I think we'll do green. So they're pitting here. And this one's a little bit longer stop, but I think this is green as part of the thing is this is more about fuel than anything else. This is one of those things, let's set ourselves up later for shorter pit stops if need be. So they do, 2 guys took 2 tires at this point. The 17 and the 38 also stay out. So there's 4 positions that change on pit road based on some strategy calls. So right off the bat, it didn't really, when Ryan ends up back there about 8th or 10th on this restart, it's not really the bad pit stop of any sort. Pit stop was right around where everybody else's was, right about the 10-second range. But 2 guys, like I said, took 2 tires to go past him, and 2 guys stayed on the track. And that makes for a rough restart too here. And Jonathan tells him we did a decent air pressure change here and tells them save fuel if you can. So like I said, the thought is already in their heads that they're going to do something later. It might be a short pit stop. So 17 takes the top. Ryan takes the top. Restart lap 219 here. At 220, we get a caution for the 99, hitting the 5 into the 11. And Ryan's up to 8th when this happens. This is really interesting because you listen to the TV guys and they're like, what was, they're kind of like on the 99 more than anything else. But there is something to be said for having your nose in a situation and trying to pop it in somewhere where it don't belong and hoping that everybody around you just lets you go, And I'm kind of glad that the 99 kind of held his ground on this. Not just because it alters the race, I'm sure, but he had raced like that all day on restarts. Okay.
Yep.
And
pinching guys down. Yep.
Pinching guys down and doing that kind of stuff. And so this time he paid for it. That's all there is to it. And that's why you don't hear much from Larson about that stuff after a race either. Because a lot of times he knows that he's done something that sometimes he gets away with it, sometimes he doesn't. And I'm glad Daniel defended his position.
It was interesting. Denny on his show said It's up to when you're 3 wide bottom, it's up to you to hold your lane. Well, the 99 only knew he was 3 wide bottom for a second and he got loose. So he didn't really understand that the 5 had shot the gap in the middle there when the 6 was already trying to pinch everybody down to try to defend that position. So it is what it is. The 5, did make an amazing run through the field. In my opinion, he moved a lot of guys out of the way, including the 99 at one point. To get back to the front. So sometimes karma kind of gets you, and sometimes those aggressive moves get you. And the driver of the 5 said, maybe I should have been a little bit more patient. Knew who I was racing around, which I think that was kind of a slight at the 99, but and just wait a little bit more and then make the pass. He definitely could have done that, and maybe we would have seen a more interesting battle for the win down the stretch.
So Jonathan says we're about 15 away from the fuel window here. So they're not close enough to fuel up to make it to the end. But I wrote down this top 10 because it's a weird top 10 at this point. You got 17, the 4, 38, the 6, the 99, the 23, then the 9, the 12, the 8, the 24. So 2 or 3 of the Hendrick guys and Ryan are the back of the top 10. And that's really kind of weird because for the most of the race, they were all running in the top 5. The leader is 17 taking the top, Ryan taking the top with the 48 behind Ryan here. We start at lap 228. The 23 basically almost wrecks us on this restart. And at lap 231, up to P10, battling the 23. And then 234, he gets to the inside of the 23, the 48, and the 99 basically within this lap and gets all the way to P7. At lap 235, we pass the 38, get to 6, and the 4 is the leader at this point. At lap 239, passing the 9 and the 6, get to P4. 241, passing the 17, get to P3. At 243, fastest car on the track, according to Tim. At lap 250, passes the 24 up to P2. Lap 251, he's 0.25 or 2.5 back of the 4 car, and we get a caution for the 17 here on lap 260.
This was that stretch that I mentioned earlier about him being on kill mode. You really only heard Tim calling out high, low. The whole way through there, Ryan was dead silent, didn't mention anything about how the car was handling, didn't gripe about the 23 almost crashing him. He basically just got into the zone. Probably was because of the way that restart happened and the way he got shuffled out of the top 10 essentially. Probably used that as motivation, and you just saw him pick them off one by one. Again, props to anybody who's making these in-car cameras possible, because it's always a great watch to watch him move through the field like that. And I think that is the moment. I mean, he's already had a pretty dominant car, won the stage, led a ton of laps at this point, and I'm like, this is an opportunity here to set them up to win the race. He has the best car at this point. They should win this race.
Ryan, on the radio here says we're pretty good here. Jonathan says, I think our play here is a 3. Whatever 3 is. Now, I had this feeling right off the bat. As soon as he said a number that was a weird number, it's the 2-tire stop. It's got to be, right? And Jonathan says we're going to stick with that, the number 3. And, of course, they come in, and it's a 4.328 second stop for 2 tires and enough fuel to get to the end. Logano takes 2, and the 47 takes 2 here. Jonathan says there was a small air pressure adjustment. And this was because of the tightening up the track. And, so for this choose, Ryan went to P1. So for the choose, he takes the top. The 22 goes behind to the low lane, and the 47 is behind Ryan. Now, the only thing I said about this, we were talking about it off air, is it really surprised me more teams didn't gamble for the track position. That a couple more of them you thought maybe would have went 2 tires just to move up past a couple guys and see what they could do with it. When the leader does it, and 1 or 2 of the cars at the front do it, you'd think that maybe some other guys in the back of the top 10, maybe to get to 4th or 3rd, would have done it. But it was just the 3 cars that did it, and it pays off actually for all 3 of them, because all 3 of the guys, I mean, not just Ryan winning, but the 22 and the 47 really weren't going to be top 5 type cars unless they did something like this, and then it worked too. So, all credit to them.
And I think they had the confidence to do this because of the 47, because of the 99, and guys that went out there on restarts without taking any tires in this race. And while they didn't necessarily hold the lead in those moves, they stayed into the top 5, into the top 10. Ryan, I think, asks about the call kind of after it's over when, Tim's asking, how many people behind us, getting clarification on how many people took 2. I think some of them thought more had, like you said, you thought more would. And Jonathan comes on and says the left rears have not been wearing all day long. You're, essentially you're good to go. And nothing else is said about it after that. So, but turns out to be an amazing call, the race winning call.
Yeah. So I got a restart here at lap 267. So roughly about 83 laps to go in the race. And he clears the 22 in about a lap. At lap 270, 47 gets to P2, about 9/10 of a second back to Ryan. Lap 274, the 24 passed the 47, once again about 9/10 of a second back. Lap 275, Tim says, really great lap, obviously. That's the way he puts it. And then the 47 and the 24 are kind of battling for second back there, which is great. Let them drag each other back a little bit. Lap 285, same lap times as the 24. And once again, it's about a little over 9/10 of a second lead here at lap 290. We start passing lappers. And this is a really, really where things can get sketchy, because if somebody makes you work a little harder than they make the guy behind you work, because, this happens with the leader all the time. Nobody wants to give up the lead lap. So they race the leader hard sometimes. And then, once they get lapped, they're like, we'll let the second place guy by us because it's no big deal anymore. So you got to kind of, hopefully get by them quick as you can. The 11 is the first one that he comes across. And then at lap 293, tells him the lap time out behind him. And, that's pretty much the same here. We're doing good. At lap 300 here, we're passing a couple different cars. They're more than one lap down. Lap 305, we're closing in on the 2 car. And I have here, let us by, please. I wrote that down. But my bigger thinking was not only let us by, but then be a rolling roadblock for a lap or two. I'm not saying you got to do it for the rest of the race, but for a lap or two, make it a little harder to get your card a little wider for that second place guy. But
yeah, I made that comment in our Discord chat that the 2 needs to get the what out of the way, and then get the what in the way.
Yeah.
The rest of the way. The other thing you're going to hear too throughout this sequence, and you hear this from Tim a lot, is I'm going to try to get you some help here. And he's talking about, you said you're not really sure how it works, whether it's just eye contact with different spotters on the roof, or whether he's running, back and forth to relay these messages. But if there's any friendly cars around that will give Ryan a lane, he's trying his best up on the roof to make that happen.
Yeah. Lap 308, we passed the 2. Lap 314, passed the 7. And at this point, the 24 is a little over a second back. So that's good. Lap 316, the 5 and the 43 here, passing them. Lap 318, it's 1.3 seconds back to the 24. So handling the traffic's going really well. The 42 and the 54 kind of battling in front of Ryan. So that's kind of making it a little sketchy. But lap 320, Tim, like you said, Tim's trying to say, I'll get you some help here. I did have it written down just like that. Lap 325 here, the 54 and the 41, he clears both of them. And the next lap basically gets past the 42, and it's about 8/10 of a lead now to the 24. And we're getting close here. At lap 328, passing the 17. That's a lapper. At lap 329, passing the 21. At lap 332, passing the 14, another lapper here, and it's 1.1 back to the 24. And he at 335, Tim asks Jonathan if we're good to the end. This was just between the 2 of them, not with Ryan involved. And Jonathan just says 10-4. I don't know, just kind of like in the back of his head from weeks ago or what. But
can I ask you? We're talking about as the laps are counting down here, and what I don't know if it's what our rituals are in this position. Like what do? You can describe what you said your wife does too, but for me, I go radio silent. I dip out of the Discord, I put my phone down, and I'm just watching the race, and I don't talk to anybody that's around me. I pretty much just stay quiet and focused in these moments. Sometimes I'll get up and I'll pace around, but what's going on over at the Mez household?
That's
All
me
the
right
notes.
there. All the notes. That's all I'm doing is writing down, listening, watching, writing notes, listening, watching, writing notes, trying to pick out anything that might be important that's going on. My wife, she kind of like put her head down onto her phone, and I don't know if she was reading Twitter or just like phased out into something else, but the tension was so high. And the funny part is the combination of things. So we're using a streaming, DirecTV streaming on USA. And like I said, that takes a certain amount of time. So the in-car camera is the half a lap, maybe a little more ahead of it. The radio is almost a lap, a little over a lap ahead of everything sometimes. So we got to, at the end here, we get to hear, watch 3 times the victory. But so that's kind of what we were doing. Lap 337, passing the 23. Lap 339, passing the 10. Like I said, putting these guys a lap down. Lap 340, it's still an 0.8 of a second lead. So, with 10 to go, we're still about where we were. Lap 343, it's a 1 second lead. Lap 347, passing the 19. The 19 lets them guy by pretty good, which was nice. And at lap 348, Tim's like, tell him how far back. And then, lap 349 is by 6 at this point, so it's closed a little bit. Just says hit your marks. And then we get our checkered flag with the 12 car underneath it, and the big celebration begins. And I think I slept a little bit last night. I know my wife hardly slept. She just, she was like dancing around and jumping around all night long.
I did not. Yeah, I had a rough night's sleep, but a lot of it was just continuing to check Twitter.
Yeah.
It's
yeah. You want to watch for Bob's big tweet at some point that says the check is complete, because that's always a thing. You never know. But once that was just before midnight, I think, the check being complete. And, people, getting on Twitter and interacting and, posting stuff and trying to find good videos. And the NASCAR.com, this is why NASCAR just start their own channel, streaming stuff, because they showed the press conference afterward from it's at the press center. You had Jonathan, and then you had Ryan in separate press conferences. Great answers to the questions, listen to different things that were said afterward. Lots of plays on the corn puns, like the corn dogs of the week. I don't know if that's going to be like stacking pennies.
If you'd catch that one or not, I thought it was funny.
That was great. Corn dog.
But yeah,
corn dogs of the week.
Incredible moment. You mentioned some of this post-race stuff, and I do have Ryan's post-race interview from right out there on track on USA pulled up, so why don't we take a listen to what he had to say after doing, like I said, the Polish victory lap for the fans, came back around, and I said in the Discord, I'm sure in his head he's like battling, like, should I do the burnout? Shouldn't I do the burnout? Because remember, he pretty much in this Cup Series career didn't do the burnout whole career until Talladega last year, which I think was just really releasing a lot of pent-up frustration of having such a terrible summer, and then also the team coming together, getting a victory and advancing in the playoffs. So he does a burnout there, doesn't do one at Martinsville, does a burnout at Phoenix when he wins the championship. So again, I think there's a little bit of pent-up frustration, victories they should have gotten this year, does a big burnout on the front stretch, fans go wild, climbs out of the car, and talks with USA.
Oh, man, I mean, what a cool way to win here. This place is means a lot to me, means a lot to my mom. And we had a lot of people here tonight cheering us on, so they willed us to that one. So overall, really appreciate the whole 12 boys. I mean, our car was really fast all night, and we got a little bit better through the night. And 2 tires was a good call there. I didn't know how well I was going to hold on. I kind of started to struggle a little bit at the end, but had enough to hang on. So super proud of the effort. Appreciate Advanced Auto Parts, Ford Performance, Menards, Discount Tire, Worth, Snap-on, Dex Imaging, Wabash, everything they do makes up a little bit from a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, so we were watching your friends and family on those final few laps and them cheering you on. How's this going to work, Ryan? Are all 80 coming to victory lane?
I hope so. I don't know. we'll see. But I'm looking forward to seeing them. It's always good to have family, and I've been super lucky to have family that support me, through my career, and it's great that they're, still support me just as much as they did day one. So also want to appreciate the sold-out crowd. You guys were cool weekend, man. Really cool to win the first Cup race here. I can't wait we come back with many more years.
So special it deserved a burnout. That's only the second time I've seen you do a burnout, Ryan.
Yeah, home track. I got to. Means a lot. I've won. It's cool to win a truck here, Xfinity car here, now a Cup car. That was cool. Gosh, I'm worn out. It was a long race and driving hard, and I figured I deserved a burnout. So hopefully Dale Inman isn't too mad at me.
How about that?
That ended up being pretty cool experience there. Pretty cool. I always love watching Ryan's post-race interviews there after victories. He mentions the home track thing, and this was something I kind of wanted to chat with you about. And it's kind of funny. I feel like in my eyes, Ryan might be like the new Martin Truex Jr. here, because I feel like he kind of has a lot of home tracks. So Ryan was born in Ohio, so closest tracks to there, Michigan, Pocono. He's actually won at both of those. Mm-hmm. Moves to High Point and lives most of his life into adulthood in High Point in that North Carolina area. Technically, at that point, Martinsville pretty much would be his closest track to him. Maybe North Wilkesboro there. I didn't do the I was going to say MapQuest. That would date me. I didn't do a Google Map search on that one. So he's won at Martinsville. Also, multiple wins at Charlotte between the Xfinity Series and winning the Coca-Cola 600. Now you have this mom's side of the family. She grows up, I think they said, around an hour or so from the track near Des Moines in a small town. So he kind of considers Iowa one of his home tracks, gets the career sweep there now, winning in trucks, Xfinity, in the Cup Series. So I don't know if he's the new Truex or not with all these home tracks, but the cool thing is he's won at every single one of them so far.
Yeah, there was some great, like you said, that camera coverage of that group, because they all wore the same shirts up in the stands. But some of my favorite pictures and post race stuff was Dave and Lisa down at the fence, and Dale too, his uncle down there at the fence when he went to get the checkered flag, and got done with the interviews, and they were like kind of popping up underneath the fence and coming through the fence there, and that was kind of cool to see too. The big Dave with the big smile on Father's Day there.
So amazing victory. Like I said, lifts a huge weight off of his shoulders, the team's shoulders, and I think all the fans too, deservedly so, especially with how we've been the last few episodes and me being nervous. So let's talk about the point situation now. I believe immediately in the overall playoff standing itself, where they move the winners up. I think Ryan's moved up into like 6th or 7th position there. He does have the 2 playoff points from the stage win, or he has 7 playoff points with the victory here and 2 stage wins on the year. Huge points day, 50 plus points on the day by winning stage 1, top 5 in stage 2, winning the race. And that vaults Ryan from the 12th position in the standings all the way up to the 7th position. So last week he was 12th position, 117 points back of the leader, and also having to worry about the playoff cut line. 1 week later, 1 victory later, the 12 team is now 7th. They vaulted 5 positions in the standings. Don't have to worry about the playoff cut line anymore. They are now 90 points behind the new leader, who is Chase Elliott, who is quietly having a fantastic year. So kudos to that team. So he's gained 27 points to the leader in the overall point standings, which are really important. And 5 positions in the standings all in one race. And I feel like last week I was even saying, I don't know, it's going to take a couple races, trying to do some of the math to see what he needs to do to stay ahead of that cut line. Don't have to worry about the cut line anymore. And I would like to say something I think they say at Penske a lot. Now they can just focus forward. It's all forward. It's all about gaining as much stage points as they can throughout these next 9 races, I think, or what it is, until the end of the regular season. Win as many stages as they possibly can. I say the regular season points are important because I don't know if they have a shot at winning the regular season championship. There are a lot of things will have to happen to the guys ahead of him. But the higher he finishes in this top 10 of the regular season, the more bonus points they get, that he will carry through the playoffs as it continues to reset round to round. 2022, they actually went into the playoffs with a ton of stage points from winning stages. They just didn't get any from winning races, and they finished really high in the regular season standings and picked up a bunch of bonus points that way. And that actually helped carry him through even without the victories, almost within a couple positions of advancing to the championship 4 in 2022 without a win. 2023, though, it was kind of like this year where they didn't pile up a bunch of stage points. So I don't know that there's really anything to be nervous about, but somehow I'm still making myself nervous because they did this in 2023. They went into the playoffs without these stage points, but you know what they did instead? They just won races to advance, and they didn't have to lean on that.
Hashtag team of the summer.
That was great.
Yep. No, who said that? Yes, last night.
Jonathan Hassler, crew chief, right?
Said that. Said we're going to be the team of the summer here. That's it, and that's what they're going to do now. Next weekend is another weekend, another shot at it, and build up some points and get another victory in here, maybe 2. Remember that 2 years ago that playoff run where they won a race and then they won back-to-back races. They could do all that. Hey, no rule against it, and they're definitely this weekend going to another track they could do it at. So. Yeah, let's just be the team of the summer. Let's accumulate some points and make it easy so that first round or 2 is no problem, and then we get it going by the end of that third round of the playoffs.
So, congratulations to everyone, all the crew members, all the guys that have given us their time to come in here and chat with us in interviews throughout the last couple of years. Great to see all of them celebrating in victory lane at Iowa. Congratulations to Ryan Blaney on the career sweep out there in corn country. But before we move on to next week, let's talk about everything that happened in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. And we're actually going to start with your lineup. So Steve's doing some fun things on TikTok. So shout out to anybody that is actually watching us live on TikTok right now. He's doing a stream of the podcast. So I have the duties of letting everybody know the amazing picks that Steve made for his fantasy lineup ahead of Iowa. So his starters were Joey Logano, got him 36 points. Kyle Larson got him 22 points. Chase Elliott got him 44 points. Kyle Busch got him a grand total of 3 points. William Byron got him 42 points. In the garage, Denny Hamlin with 18. Did you make a garage swap during this race?
Well, I think I did before the end of stage 2, but the thing is the things that happened there were after stage 2. So I couldn't do anything about the 8 car and what happened with him. So I mean, it's a minor amount of points, but it would have been enough for a couple positions probably. I think the picks ended up being pretty decent. I think I had 3 of the 4 picks.
So featured matchups that were 10 points each. You picked Kyle Larson over Hamlin. That was wrong. You picked Byron over Truex. That was right. You picked Blaney over Logano. That was right. You picked Chase Elliott over Christopher Bell. That was right. So not too shabby on the weekend. You ended up 46th position, though. 177 points earned. So not the best, not the worst. Your weak spot definitely was the 8 car of Kyle Busch in your lineup and what happened eventually with Kyle Larson. They're only getting you 22 points. So let's take a look at my team. In my starters, Brad Keselowski got me 32 points, Larson 22, Ryan Blaney had him in my lineup 57 points, Chris Buescher 23 points, Denny Hamlin 18 points, Kyle Busch 3 points. So I did make a move, and I'm not sure if it was Buescher or Hamlin that was in my garage originally, but I made that move, and just kind of like yours, I made the move, and it really didn't matter that much, just a handful of points there. We had the same exact featured matchup picks. I picked Larson over Hamlin. That was wrong. I picked Byron, Blaney, and Elliott over Truex, Logano, and Bell, and that was all right. So I picked up 30 extra points there, but I ended up 41st. So I did beat you on the weekend. Congrats to me. 182 points earned. Now that moves us over to the top 10 in points earned this weekend at Iowa Speedway. 10th position, Zero Schlitz Given, 221 points. 9th, Christian Dana, 222. 8th, Factory of Sadness 6, 223. In 5th, we have a 3-way tie, Vans 12, Bulldog 0277, and Blaney Kicks Beep, 227 points. Robach 17, 228 points. Shout out to them. they contacted us, let us know they've been listening, and mentioned that they're going to be in the top 10 in standings this week, and to gave me some advice on how to pronounce the name. So Robach 17, 228 points, tied in third with Charlie Abu, also 228 points. Second position, Joe Lopez 230, and by 1 point, the Dalai Lama 4 takes the victory at Iowa Speedway, 231 points earned. So congratulations to them. Now let's take a look at the overall standings in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. I am in the 33rd position. Team Blaney host Adam with 3,101 points earned over the year so far. Mez 12, 23rd position, 3,175. And let's take a look at the top 10, which actually starts with a tie for the 9th position with Charlie Abu and Christian Dana, 3,301. In 8th is Racer SF, 3,311. 7th, Blaney Bus, 3,313. And 6th is Factory of Santa 6, 3,319. 5th is Penske Fan 24, 3,329. 4th is Alyssa C, 3,368. 3rd is Blaney 10, 3,374. 2nd, Frank Van 12, 3,400. And leading the way still for, I can't remember how many weeks in a row at this point, our friend Go Larson, leading the way overall standings, Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League, 3,433 points. So just 33 points to the good over Frank Fan 12 in second position. So now that brings us to this weekend's race in New England, the NASCAR on TV report for New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Things kick off on Saturday, June 22nd, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You have the NASCAR Cup Series practice and qualifying at New Hampshire Motor Speedway on the USA Network. So 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, practice and qualifying. Going to be back to that normal format, I believe, of just the split 20-minute sessions, split qualifying sessions, and then they'll run for the pole. 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, the NASCAR Xfinity Series SIAPS 200 at New Hampshire, also on the USA Network. Then Sunday, June 23rd, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, you have the NASCAR Cup Series USA Today 301 at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, also on the USA Network. That's where you can watch it on TV. In preparation for this race, let's take a look at Ryan Blaney's career statistics at that flat track up there in New England. Ryan has made 11 starts at Loudon at New Hampshire, average start of 10th, average finish of 13.6. He's led 69 laps total, 4 top 10s, 2 top 5s. Kind of a middle of the road track for him. 13th, 14th place average finish, not too bad. I'm going to make this sound a little bit better. We'll go back to 2017. Finishes of 9th, 7th, 4th, 20th, 5th in 2021. But the last two there, 18th and 22nd. I know it's a new year. Team Penske has found some speed on tracks much like this. Phoenix, Gateway, some of the shorter tracks. They've found some speed over the last few weeks. Does that make you feel a little bit more confident going into this weekend after this team having 2 straight finishes outside the top 15 at this track?
Yeah, I think there's 2 guys to beat this weekend, maybe 3. Always don't beat yourself, but the 22 and I think the 19. I think this is the one of those ones that the 19 will run well, and that the 22. This is a hometown track for him. And, he's one guy to look out for. But I think those are 2 guys to look out for. But I think that the speed Penske has shown is exactly right. Practice and then qualifying will tell the tale. And from there, I think all the adjustments and everything they need to do will be there as long as they have the speed.
Take a look at the last several winners up there in New Hampshire. And we're going to go back, since I did 2017 earlier, why don't I do that again? Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, back-to-back Kevin Harvick, so you don't have to worry about him. But you do have Josh Berry in that 4 car that has been coming on strong the last couple of weeks, so they might be ones to watch for. Brad Keselowski won in 2020. Eric Almirola also is out of the series in 2021. Here's some guys. You're talking about some other people that might have some speed here. Christopher Bell definitely had some speed down the stretch this past weekend. They've had a lot of speed this year. Hasn't haven't always been able to put together races, but they do have 2 victories, I believe, on the season. And Martin Truex Jr., coming off as a retirement announcement, he did win in 2023, and they're still looking for an opportunity to punch their ticket into the playoffs. So any of those names stand out to you? Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Keselowski, Bell, Truex?
Hamlin's a funny one because of what happened with Hamlin this last weekend. At the beginning of the race, they were just horrible. And I didn't see that coming. But then once they fought through some of the things, they actually got their way up there a little bit and ran with the top 10 for a while. So you have to have a Toyota somewhere in that mix, and he's probably the guy. The 2311 guys got to start looking around the room and getting their butts moving because, Bubba is near the cut line now, and he's right there. I think he's only like 6 or 8 points above it. So it's time now to move, move toward a victory or get moving away from that line. So be some interesting things as we go because guys are going to drive a lot more desperate,
So again, if
you're in front of it all, it don't matter.
Yeah, that's definitely what we want to see, and we're going to find that out on Saturday again. Saturday, June 22nd, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, NASCAR Cup Series practice and qualifying at New Hampshire on USA. 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the Xfinity Series, and then Sunday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, USA Today, 3:01 at New Hampshire on the USA Network.
I don't know if this past weekend they pointed it out on TV or not when they're talking about the family reunion and everything, but the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation had an event Saturday at Knoxville Speedway at the Sprint Car Hall of Fame there, actually. And it was, what they call it, Dinner with the Champions, I believe is what they called it. And so Dave, Dale, Ryan were all there, and it was a great fundraiser. We know a couple people that went. I know Stelanarios went and came all the way across the country for it. And it was a big week for Dave and Dale, too, because I saw them Wednesday night this past week racing at Sharon Speedway, Ohio Speed Weeks. Even though the Tony Stewart All-Star organization has gone away, the tracks in Ohio reorganized themselves and got together with another series and put together an Ohio Speed Weeks. And we went out to Sharon Wednesday night and watched Dave and Dale. I posted a couple great videos. One of Dave's qualifying run. And they put themselves in their heat races. Dave won his heat race. Dale finished 4th in his heat race. They did a redraw of the top 10. Dave drew 10th to start the feature. Dale, I believe, was 6th to start the feature. But in the 30-lap feature, Dave went from 10th to 4th, and Dale went from 6th to 2nd. Some great racing. Really able to pass some people. The track looked great. Danny Dietrich, our one of our favorites in the 48 car, did win on the night. He went from the pole, so he checked out a little bit and didn't have too many problems with traffic. But Dale was actually coming on. I think Dale has a couple more laps. Dale might have gotten to him, to tell you the truth. Dale had figured out the track by that point and was running wherever he needed to run. So, and like I said, Dave went from 10th to 4th. So it was great watching him cut through traffic. It was a good week of racing for anybody named Blaney this week.
Yeah, definitely was super jealous I couldn't get up there to Iowa. That was one of those events that if there's a way I could get there, you got to be there. You got to have that meet and greet, get some autographs, have some dinner, watch the World of Outlaw race. I know through a Friday and Saturday, tons of NASCAR folks, industry folks, and drivers bringing their teams up to Knoxville to experience that. That was kind of cool to see. I believe at that event, I saw that Patty and then everybody else from the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation donated, I think, $10,000 to the Alzheimer's Association, one of their key causes and benefactors for the foundation. So that was really cool to see. Congratulations to them, and thank you to everybody that attended that event, has donated to the foundation over the past year. And in the past too, they really do some great work, and it's good to see them go out there and put some of that money to some really good use. But yeah, busy week between racing, the foundation event, the family reunion out there in Iowa, and then a late night, I'm sure, celebrating Ryan Blaney's victory. So, Steve, I could keep going on. I don't want I don't want this show to end, but we probably should. And hey, maybe we'll be doing another one next week, talking about another victory. But I think that pretty much wraps up this week's episode of the Team Blaney podcast. And I want to thank you, everyone, once again for tuning in. Don't forget, you can interact with us on Facebook and X at Team Blaney, and on Instagram and TikTok at team.blaney. We'd also like to encourage you to support the aforementioned Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. Ryan's official charitable organization benefits brain health causes like UPMC Sports Medicine and the Alzheimer's Association. To learn more, visit RyanBlaneyFamilyFoundation.org or follow them on Facebook, X, and Instagram. So for my co-host Steve Mez, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time on the Team Blaney podcast.
Good night, Frankfurt. Check out the TikTok.
Thanks everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.